A couple of days ago during Tesla's earnings call, Elon Musk dropped what could potentially be the harbinger of the future, a bombshell about Tesla actually releasing full self-driving into the wild in an unsupervised fashion in Austin in June of 2025, just 5 or 6 months away, as he said. Let's take a listen to what he said and discuss why he might have said it now, what the consequences are if it actually does come to pass, and whether it actually will or will not come to pass. There are a lot of people who think it will not come to pass. So let's take a look. Hey y'all, it's Dr. Know-It-All. I am going to start with Elon's own words. It's about 2 minutes, and Blyesdog was kind enough to cut this out and put this on X. So thank you to them for doing that for us. But anyway, I'm going to just start with what Elon said so that we all can listen to what he said specifically, and then we will discuss it. So let's take a listen here.
I've talked with the team. We feel confident in being able to do an initial launch of unsupervised, no one in the car, full self-driving in Austin in June.
So I'm actually going to stop right there because I want to be very, very specific about this. So number one, he talked with the team. So this is not Elon talking about 2 weeks or something like that. He has made a lot of claims in the past about it'll happen then, it'll happen then. He said talk with the team. Ashok Eloswamy is famously much more conservative about these numbers than Elon Musk is. And so talking to the team is actually a very good sign that he's done that. The second thing I want to point out here is that this will be Teslas that we owners own. This is not a robo-taxi service as far as I understand it. At first, it sounds like it will just be Teslas that we individuals own. So actually, if it's geo-fenced, I might, of course, have to take a Tesla to Austin in June and let it drive around and see if it works.
We already have Teslas operating autonomously, unsupervised full self-driving at our factory in Fremont, and we'll soon be doing that at our factory in Texas.
So a quick pause here to point out a video that I just did recently about that in the Fremont factory of self-driving. A big deal. I mean, it's actually huge that the vehicles are driving on their own. It's on private property, so they don't have to deal with regulations and stuff. But it's also good to hear that that's going to be happening in Texas very soon. I think they have to finish the boring tunnel hole under the highway to get to the parking lot there. And, it's a little bit different. But anyway, this is a big first step, and I will leave a link, of course, up above and also at the end of the video so you can check out that video as well, since they are related.
So thousands of cars every day are driving with no one in them at our Fremont factory in California. They will soon be doing that in Austin and then elsewhere in the world, the rest of our factories, which is pretty cool. And the cars aren't just driving to exactly the same spot, because obviously it all want to collide at the same spot. The cars are actually programmed with what lane they need to park into to be picked up for delivery. So they drive from the factory end of line to their destination parking spot to be picked up for delivery to customers. And they're doing this reliably every day, thousands of times a day. It's pretty cool. Like I said, the Teslas will be in the wild with no one in them in June in Austin. What I'm saying is this is not some far-off mythical situation. It's literally 5 months away, 5 months away type of thing. And while we're putting our toe in the water gently at first, just to make sure everything's cool, our solution is a generalized AI solution. It does not require high precision maps of a locality. So we just want to be cautious. It's not that it doesn't work beyond Austin. In fact, it does. We just want to put a toe in the water, make sure everything's okay, then put a few more toes in the water, then put a foot in the water with safety of the general public and those in the car as our top priority.
So this is specifically what Elon Musk said, and I wanted to let us all hear what he said. He said, not some mythical far-off thing. Let's take account of this when we get to reactions in the public for all of this. Talked to the team. This is not yet an autonomous taxi service like Waymo. That's not what he's claiming. He is claiming, at least to the best of my knowledge from what he said right here, that they will allow us normal owners to drive the cars unsupervised. In other words, right now, we can take our hands off the wheels and our feet off the pedals, but we have to always be paying attention to the road. It's monitoring our eyes. And if we do that, of course, it gets mad at us, or if it needs an emergency takeover, it will request that from us, and we have to be ready at a second's notice to take over. So the difference then will be that the vehicle will be driving on its own, and that has a lot of consequences if true. The second very important thing is he talked to the team. This is not something he made up on his own. A lot of times in the past, he said it's going to happen X, Y, Z, and that's been him talking, and it has proved to be very much not the case. But this is a very different different way of him saying this. And number three, he didn't say 2 weeks. He said June. So, I mean, I think he said May or June, if I want to be very specific. But he said 5 or 6 months, not some mythical far off thing. So they're literally looking at a calendar date. Now, will this actually come to pass or not? We'll discuss that more in just a second. So the next thing I said I wanted to talk about was why now? Why discuss this now? One potential reason is, of course, that Tesla's 2024 results were less than stellar. They were not flat. They actually had negative growth for the first time in basically the modern history of Tesla. I couldn't tell you if the first year they were delivering Roadsters, if they delivered a few less one year than another. But anyway, since they released the Model S, this is completely unprecedented for them to build fewer cars and deliver fewer cars in a year than they had the year before. Now, there are many, many reasons for this. There's a lot of economic headwinds and things like that. But of course, we also have to take account of the fact that there is consumer sentiment that has shifted away from Tesla for various political reasons without dipping my toe too far into the water about that. But speaking of that, there is a UK survey that came out recently, and I am going to cover that. I've been sitting on that one for a while because I've been like, oh gosh, do I really want to get that much into politics? But I think I need to. I need to talk about this because it has to do with Tesla, and we need to actually, have our eyes open, and we need to think about the way these things go. But anyway, there's a lot of different factors, but it was a very rough year for Tesla. So people are saying, including me to some extent, that Elon Musk is trying to talk about the future, trying to talk about things that are not today because today was not a particularly good day, at their earnings call. Now, to be completely fair, Elon always talks about the future at these earnings calls. He doesn't really care that much about the auto business anymore. I mean, he does, but for the last several years, we've seen it over and over and over again, and I really like it. He wants to talk about autonomy. He wants to talk about robotaxis. He wants to talk about Optimus. He wants to talk about the future. So this is very much in keeping with Elon's style. So do I think that he was specifically talking about this only to kind of hand wave and go like, don't pay attention to today's results, look at tomorrow's results? A little bit, yeah, I'm sure that helped to motivate him, but this is very much part and parcel. Even when they have sold amazing numbers of cars and stuff, he is always talking about the future. So this is just the way he thinks. That's what his modus operandi is. So I think it's much more likely that this is just what he wants to talk about. That's the part that interests him. So next question then is this actually going to happen by June of 2025? Well, I mean, we are all speculating about the future. If Elon did talk to the team and he talked to Ashok and he talked to other people who are in the trenches working on this, then I think yes, with a bunch of caveats. We're going to have to start slicing this bread pretty thin. So number one slice, I don't think this will be an immediate wide release to everyone in unsupervised fashion. I think it will go out to a number of people who have been beta testers and, supervised testers for a long period of time. And of course, who live in Austin or the Austin area. So will I be able to drive there and just have my car geofenced, like turn on automatically? Probably not on day one. If things go well, then sure, maybe within a month or two. But quite honestly, I will fly out and I'll go have a drive with Gail or somebody, whoever has one of these things first. I'll just go out and, test their car because that would be really cool to do. And it'll save me a drive halfway across the country to do that too. But I don't think that it's going to just be willy-nilly. I think it's going to be trickled out. So they will release it to a very few people. He said they're going to dip their toes in the water. So they're going to dip the toenail in the water first is my guess. They'll release it to a dozen or 20 or 50 or whatever. They'll release it to a small number of people with hardware for vehicles. That is another thing. We're going to talk more about that in a second. And it will expand from there based on the fact that people don't get into accidents, bad things don't happen, all of that kind of stuff. So I don't predict that we're suddenly going to see thousands of Teslas driving around on their own on June 15th or whatever that date would be of 2025. I think it's going to be a small little release and it will happen over the summer and get bigger. So that already slices the pie pretty thin because you have to be living in Austin and you have to probably be one of the people who's had this for quite a while that Tesla trusts a lot to not attempt to do anything bad with the vehicle to get first dibs at unsupervised full self-driving. And the next slice of the puzzle is no hardware 3. That is quite obvious. Elon, he said, unfortunately, he said it in the earnings call, call. He said it before the earnings call. He said, unfortunately, it looks like hardware 3 is not going to cut it. I can't remember the exact words, but I think he said it's not going to cut it. But anyway, if you purchased full self-driving, Tesla's full self-driving with your hardware 3 vehicle, which was probably only about 10% of people who did that. But anyway, if you did that, then Tesla will eventually give you a hardware 4 board or an AI 4 board. They'll figure out how to put the modern computer, the modern cameras and stuff into your vehicle, and it will shoehorn it in there. Now, ironically, the one car that we don't have full self-driving with that we just bought a subscription for was our Model 3, which is hardware 3. So the other two have hardware 4 in them already, and we purchased full self-driving. So the irony of this is that we won't ever get that for a Model 3, but it's also the car that we kind of use the least and will probably sell first. So I think we'll survive. But anyway, so that's another very important slice of the pie, because that's something that, you know, most people who have a Tesla, although obviously more and more with hardware 4 are being sold, but most people who own a Tesla still own a hardware 3 Tesla, and that means that they will not have access to this, even if they live in Austin and even when it rolls out wide. And another slice of the pie, even beyond hardware 4, is that only Model 3s and Model Ys will be allowed to do this at first. The Cybertruck is lagging behind in terms of the quality of the full self-driving, so that is not going to be unsupervised anytime soon. My prediction, I mean, maybe it will catch up quickly, but right now it is distinctly further behind. I get in my Model Y, I put in the destination, it goes there. I'm very comfortable with the car driving the whole way. With the Cybertruck, I feel quite differently about that. I mean, it's good for the most part, but it's good for the most part, not good for like all the part. So I think that the Cybertruck will be left out in the initial rollout, you know, maybe by the end of 2025 or something as it catches up, but certainly it's not going to be at the forefront. It won't be on day one. So little baby steps, only a few vehicles, only a few of the most trusted testers at the beginning. This is my prediction, of course, but that it will actually happen in June. We will see it happen in June, and Tesla will be able to make a big splash about it, but it's not going to be this, you know, explosion of Teslas all over the country and all over the world driving on their own. How fast that will go, I'm going to save that for the consequences in just a second. But first of all, I want to talk about, you know, reactions from people. So this one is from Yahoo Finance. You know, people, this is some of the reactions. Musk, for nearly a decade now, has claimed his company had the hardware needed to do full self-driving 2016, 2019, 2020, 2021. And then they say 2024 was a lackluster and end to a very difficult year for Tesla. So that's the standard response to this. Another reaction, this one from USA Today, that shows just how wrong people are getting this, because we listened to what Elon said. Musk said the company plans to launch thousands of driverless vehicles as a robotaxi service throughout the city where its headquarters is located. No, that is not what he said at all. Similar to Airbnb and blah, blah, blah. And then it actually does have a quote. These Teslas will be in the wild with no one in them in June. This is not some far off mythical situation, literally 5 or 6 months away. Now, maybe did he mix these things together a little bit? Because he does say no one in them, but from what I hear, from what he said, I do not believe that he said that they were going to be offering this as a robo-taxi service. I believe that the first thing that is going to happen is it is going to be people who own the vehicle, already have full self-driving, already supervise it right now. It's just going to flip a switch where it's not paying attention to the camera anymore. I mean, he said people texting and doing things, right? So that you can do other stuff. You can take your eyes off the wheel. You can look at your phone. You can go to sleep, I guess. I don't know. If it's unsupervised, you can do whatever you want. But I believe that this is just incorrect information, that people are not understanding what he said. This is not a launch of the robotaxi service yet. Eventually, yes, not now. So as one might expect from the general public, the general reaction is a lot of skepticism that this is another Elon Musk 2 weeks, and there's an incorrect understanding of what this dipping their toe in the water is going to look like at the beginning, which, you know, doesn't bode well for the way the media is reacting to it, because they're not really understanding what's going on at this point. And again, I could be wrong, but I listened to his words. It sure as hell sounds like he's saying that this is going to be people who already own the vehicle. They're just going to turn off the supervised part and make it unsupervised full self-driving, as opposed to that. No robo-taxi service yet. That will follow, of course, because Tesla's building a literal cybercab. So how are you going to avoid doing that? You've got to offer that as a service if you're going to offer it as a cybercab. But that's not what I'm hearing is going to happen right away in June of 2025. So let's slice this pie a little bit. If we slice the pie that way, it sounds pretty reasonable that we could get to there by June of 2025. Now, Austin, Texas is a bit of a weird place. They've got those weird Texas U-turns. They've got crazy highway on and off entrance, exits, things like that. But, you know, the vehicles, that is Tesla's headquarters. Texas is a much more what would you call it? Laissez-faire in terms of regulations and stuff. So this is a place that Tesla can get approval to do this more rapidly than in California, it's likely. But again, it's very likely that if it goes well in Austin, it will roll out to California next, because that has also established itself as a relatively driverless car friendly environment. So the odds are, and Tesla's talked about this, in fact, Elon's talked about this before, that Texas and California are the two states where it's going to happen first. So it's going to be a while before it comes to Georgia, I am sure, or Florida or Ohio or New York or wherever you live. But if you're in those two states, you can think it might happen in 2025. And if you live in Austin and you already have a full self-driving hard AI4 car, then the likelihood is that, in the next June, July, August, sometime in the summer of 2025, you will be able to do unsupervised full self-driving. And I want you to give me a ride. We'll have a chat. It'll be fun. Okay, so now for the consequences. Let's talk about the consequences a little bit. If this happens, so we'll just assume it's going to happen, and we'll just say it happens June 15th or something, or call it June 1st, whatever. Doesn't really matter. But if this happens, there's going to be multiple consequences to this. Number one, it means that there is regulatory approval for this to happen from the city of Austin and the state of Texas. So that is a big deal. That's, I guess, that's not really a consequence, but a pre-consequence. But the consequence is that the state of Texas and the city of Austin will be taking not really responsibility, but taking some authority in saying, yes, that this is an okay thing for them to do. And I would hope that Tesla has been in talks with them previously, because you certainly don't want to say, hey, we'll release this in June if they've never even heard you were thinking about doing this before, because they might be like, whoa, we need 12 months to put this in place or something. So hopefully they have been in contact already. The second very important consequence here is the second that I am not driving anymore, I as a driver in a Tesla, and the Tesla itself is driving in unsupervised mode, I believe that puts Tesla in the position of being the responsible party if there ever is an accident. And eventually there will be one. I mean, you drive billions of miles, an accident has to happen once in a while. So I think that it will happen eventually, and Tesla, I would imagine, will be responsible. Of course, to their credit, Tesla has been thinking about this for years. They've rolled out their own version of insurance, and at first it looked like what they were trying to do is compete and save people money and everything. But if you look at the states where the insurance is available, I think what they're doing is they're setting up a situation where they're able to they know the statistics, they understand how much damage is done, how often these accidents happen, and they have the data, and they also have the capability through that state to take on the responsibility as the responsible party driving. So it'd be like if I was in an Uber at that point. The person driving the Uber is responsible. Effectively, when the vehicle takes over, the Tesla, the company itself, or some subsidiary or something like that, I don't know, but something else besides me has to be responsible, because I'm not the person driving anymore. At this point, when it's supervised, I'm still supervising, which means I'm still responsible. That's kind of the most important part, but that I'm responsible for the vehicle and making sure it doesn't get in an accident. As soon as it's unsupervised, that means that it's going to be on Tesla to do that, not me. And speaking of insurance, another big consequence to Tesla is going to be if they do get in an accident. If I get in an accident, bad day, don't want to do that. But I'm a normal person. I'm not worth that much money, right? So, the insurance companies will work it out. If I'm a responsible party, then whatever, we pay for all that stuff, right? It sucks. But it's not that big a deal. It's not going to cost anybody a ton of money unless it's a really, really bad accident. But if it's just like a fender bender or something and somebody hurts their neck, it's not a good day, but it's a kind of a standard thing, and everybody knows how to deal with this. If a Tesla runs into somebody and just damages their car a little bit, but gives them a little bit of whiplash, that person could potentially sue Tesla for $1 billion or something, right? They are a gigantic company, and this is the kind of thing where it would be a, big giant brouhaha about suing Tesla for injuring you. I had a robo-taxi or a driverless car hit me. Oh no, my neck, that kind of thing. So look for the first accident that happens, and there will be eventually an accident that will happen because statistics just dictate it has to happen. But as soon as that happens, there is going to be a really, really high profile lawsuit that will be filed against Tesla. They're not new to it, but this is a consequence of what's going to happen here, because Tesla's going to have to deal with that. Now, hopefully hopefully they've got a really good set of lawyers and their insurance company is rock solid and they know what to do about all of this stuff, but they are opening themselves up to potentially many of these very, very high profile lawsuits. And that could be extremely draining to the company, especially if they lost one of them. So that's a really big consequence here. The other one Elon Musk talked about, I think, he didn't talk about Tesla's exposure to this kind of a thing, but he talked about it in a roundabout way by talking about public safety. And I'm not saying that he doesn't want public safety, but the two things go hand in hand. You want to not get into an accident. You want the public to be safe. And if you don't get into an accident, you don't have to worry about being sued for, causing an accident or something. So anyway, he's talking about public safety and dipping their toes in the water is an important consequence of this. You don't want to have these things causing any accidents, but a fender bender is like one thing. If it causes any kind of physical injury, or God forbid, something like what happened with the cruise vehicle in San Francisco, gosh, how many months ago was that now? But anyway, that's a shut down the company kind of moment. So Tesla has to be extremely careful about that. You cannot injure anybody. That is first and foremost. So this is a highly consequential decision that they're making here. And, most companies don't have the guts to do this. I've just got to say, this is something that Tesla is doing, and they're flying a little bit on the edge here. If they can make it work, then all power to them. And if they can get a couple of 100 million to a billion plus miles in there without a serious accident, then if one happens down the line, then, they can go like, look, statistically, it's just going to happen at some point. But if they've only driven, say, 100,000 miles and there's a serious accident with a Tesla in Austin, that's going to be bad news for all of this stuff. So a consequence of all of this, we want Tesla to be very public safety conscious, because if we want to be able to enjoy autonomous robotaxis and just to be able to have our cars drive us around without us supervising them all the time, we want these things to be as safe as possible, because if there's a high profile accident or especially an injury within the first, couple 100,000 miles of operating these vehicles, that will put things back a long, long ways. So that is another heavy duty consequence of this decision. Once you pull this trigger, once the horses are out of the barn, you can't pull them back in again, right? Once they make this decision, they have to live with it. And it's going to be a very consequential decision. So as you can tell, I'm quite nervous about this, and I'm nervous for Tesla. I want to make sure that they do this right. I'm selfishly nervous too, because I want my car to be able to drive me everywhere. I hate driving. I really hate driving. So I would love it if the car would just drive and I could not worry about that at all. So from a selfish point of view, I just don't want to think about that stuff anymore. I want to be a passenger, not a driver. But turning from my fears and everything, let's talk about the positives. So let's say that this works and they don't have any accidents, or at the very worst, they just have a couple of small fender benders. They get 1 million, 2 million miles driving in the Austin area with the vehicles. They start off with a small handful, expands out, maybe eventually just gets to the point where if you drive your hardware for your AI4 Tesla Model 3 or Model Y into the Austin area, into some geofenced area, it just turns to unsupervised as opposed to supervised. So people can come and go. They can, sort of do Tesla tourism where they can just drive their cars in and they can have them drive them around, and then they can go wherever they live. If this works, the last part of what Elon said is very, very important. The consequence of the way Tesla is doing their full self-driving is it's generalizable. It works in all of North America right now. Now, obviously not as well in some places as others, but I live in Georgia, which is not a particularly noteworthy area for Tesla's full self-driving. And like I said, with my Model Y, I would feel I had somebody ask me this recently. It was like a couple of weeks ago, and they were like, would you close your eyes while your Tesla was driving? I was like, absolutely not with the Cybertruck, not good enough yet. Absolutely yes with the Model Y. I would trust it. I would trust it to drive me to work, which is about a 20-minute drive, including 10 minutes of that, more than that, I think 10 or 12 minutes on the highway. So, we're talking about going 75 miles an hour for 10 to 12 minutes. It's about 10 miles on the road at 65 to 75 miles an hour, and I would shut my eyes for the whole thing. That's how much I trust that vehicle right now. Would I feel comfortable the first time? No, I would probably be freaking out. But it's the kind of thing where the car is that good already. So it's there pretty much, and I don't live in an area that's particularly noteworthy to be great for full self-driving. So anyway, if it works in Austin, and if they can ramp it up and they can basically just release it to all the AI for Teslas that come and go through Austin, and it just turns off supervision while you're in the geofenced area. If they can do that and they can run it for several months, let's say the rest of the year or something, then I would expect that it will start coming out in California, where again, they're friendly to this thing, and it will start coming out in other areas. The technological limitation is not there like Waymo. Like Waymo, you have to map the cities. You have to have all of this high resolution mapping and stuff that has to be there. Every single city is its own new beast, and you have to roll them out very, very carefully. With Tesla, this is a generalized solution. It already works almost as well everywhere in the United States, Canada, and I think in Mexico. I haven't heard too much about Mexico, but anyway, at least in the United States and Canada, it works very, very well. Not as well everywhere as other places, but Tesla has the statistics for this. They know where it works well and they know where it doesn't, so they can roll it out specifically in areas that are number one, friendly, and number two, that they know it works well in already, and they can kind of focus on areas that they want to release it in to make it even better there. So will this happen in June, July? I think yes. I think it will happen. It probably is going to be a very, very small number of people to start with, but it will roll out. If it goes well, we'll see an expansion, and hopefully it'll show up in other cities in Texas in 2025 and in a couple of cities in California, hopefully by the end of 2025. And then 2026, we'll see a rollout across the country, in addition to some actual, fleet-based robo-taxi rides that are truly driverless, where people are actually paying money, which exposes Tesla to even bigger, consequences. It's a difference if I'm in the car and I'm not a paying passenger, as opposed to if I am in the car and I'm paying money for this. That means Tesla is even more exposed, because if you injure me as a paying passenger, that the liability goes up even further. So anyway, but the consequences are big. This is a really, really big gamble on Tesla's part. We knew they were going to have to pull the trigger someday. We just didn't know exactly what day that was going to be, but it sounds like it's June. If it goes well, it changes the world quite literally. If it goes medium well, it changes the world literally, but on a much slower basis. And if it goes badly, if there's a bad accident or a fatality or a bad injury or something like that very early on, then things could get pushed back by 5+ years. I don't know, maybe permanently, right? That would be very, very negative consequences. So I just want to be clear. This is a defining moment. When we reach June, whatever, or July, whatever, whenever they decide to pull the trigger on this, this is a very consequential, crossing the Rubicon kind of moment. You're burning the ships. You're not able to go back. Tesla's going to have to go forward, or they're going to have to die trying. So it's a big deal, folks. Alrighty, folks, I plan to talk about this for about 10 minutes. You could see I got pretty excited and talked for a little longer than that. So thank you for sticking with me. If you did, please do like the video so other people can find it. And of course, please do subscribe. It super helps out the channel. I would still love to get to 100,000 subscribers, even though my birthday was a few days ago, actually on the day of the earnings call. So you can give me an earnings call bonus by giving me a little birthday subscription bump. Anyway, I will see you guys in the next video, and thank you so much. Bye-bye.